Welcome, dear listener. Tonight, we travel not through time's loud battles, but through its quiet hours. The gentle realm of sleep and dreams. In the heart of ancient Rome, beneath stone arches and lamplight, one dreamer drifts between worlds. His day unfolds among rituals, omens, and whispered prayers to Somnus, the god of rest. As you listen, let the slow rhythm of old words and ancient silence carry you deeper into calm. This is a sleeping historian, where the past speaks softly, and history itself becomes a lullaby. Now, close your eyes, and let us begin. Dawn of the Roman day, the first light he awakens beneath the pale Roman light, the kind that slips softly between the shutters before the city stirs. The air still holds the quiet coolness of the night. Outside, the faint coo of doves echoes along the stone alleys. Within the modest villa, everything lies half-shadowed jars, folded linen, a bronze lamp now dark. For a moment, he remained still. The dream lingers. Shapes that were vivid a heartbeat ago fade like breath from a mirror. He senses the residue of the vision more than its form, a hill, perhaps, or a voice carried by unseen wind. As the waking world presses closer, the dream retreats, yet something of its mood clings to him, delicate and unshakable. He sits upright, running a hand through hair damp from sleep. His bed is simple wood, rope, and woven blanket, but to him it feels a small island of calm between two worlds. The silent empire of night, and a clamorous day that soon will come alive. Beyond his walls, a faint rustle in the courtyard tells him the household slaves are rising. In another room, a bronze pot meets water with a gentle hiss. The city of Rome is never truly silent, even at dawn. From distant streets come the first calls of bread sellers, and the creak of carts bound for the markets. He swings his legs to the floor, murmuring the short prayer he learned from his father. It is not to any one god, but to the household spirites, the Lares and Penates who watch over hearth and home. Keep the house, keep the day, he whispers. The words are old, older than the marble that glows beyond his window. When he stands, the dream stirs again in memory. A winged figure, perhaps Somnus himself, passing between veils of silver. He cannot recall the message, but he feels its weight. Romans, after all, did not treat dreams lightly. The empire may rule the world, yet the night remains another kingdom, answerable only to the gods. He wraps a plain tunic about his shoulders, its linen still cool. From the small basin of water near the doorway, he splashes his face. The shock of it clears the remnants of sleep, but does not quite erase the dreamless whisper. In the atrium. The first beams of the rising sun strike the household altar. He steps closer and lights a small taper, offering a pinch of incense. A pale column of smoke twists upward. To Somnus, he murmurs, and to the spirits who guard my rest. He lingers long enough to feel the warmth touch his fingertips. Then, turning, he greets his wife, who has emerged with a gentle smile and the calm efficiency of one long used to Roman mornings. You dreamt again, she says, not as question, but as certainty. He nods. A strange one. Tell me, she asks, arranging the clay cups for watered wine. He hesitates, for words never capture the trembling border between sleep and dawn. Still, he speaks. There was light upon water, and someone called my name. I do not know whose voice it was. She listens, as Roman wives often did, with that mixture of affection and superstition. Perhaps a good omen, she says softly. Perhaps Somnus watches kindly. Outside, footsteps echo a neighbor, passing by, humming an old hymn to Janus, god of beginnings. The sound draws a faint smile from him. Every dawn, he thinks, is a small new year. He drinks the mild wine and eats a piece of bread dipped in honey. The sweetness steadies him. His wife continues to prepare the morning meal, the faint clatter of utensils blending with the chorus of waking birds. Soon his eldest son appears, rubbing his eyes. The boy's first question, as always, "Father, did you dream?" "I did." "What of?" He chuckles softly. "Of mysteries I cannot tell." The boy frowns, unsatisfied, and runs off toward the courtyard. His laughter trails behind him like sunlight. When the family gathers to eat, the conversation drifts naturally toward dreams. It is an old Roman habit, these quiet interpretations at the day's edge. His wife recalls how her sister once dreamed of a dove before a wedding. The ogre had called it a promise of harmony. He listens, half absent, his mind still on his own fading vision. The Romans lived amid signs-birds in flight, shapes of clouds, the murmuring of dreams. To ignore such things felt almost reckless. As the meal ends, he ties his sandals and steps into the street. Morning light spills across the paving stones, already warm beneath his feet. A vendor calls out the price of figs. A young legionary strides past, armor glinting. Rome is awakening, magnificent and noisy, the eternal city shedding her night like a second skin. Yet he carries the hush of dreams within him. For a while, he walks without aim, past plastered walls, painted with red and ochre, past doorways where women sweep dust into the gutters. At the corner shrine, he pauses again to nod to Mercury, patron of travelers and messengers. "Carry my thoughts well today," he murmurs. The scent of baking bread reaches him from a nearby shop. He inhales, smiling faintly. Life is ordinary, vivid, constant, and beneath it. Always, the unseen pulse of omens. He recalls a saying from his youth. The gods speak in the day, but whisper in sleep. And so, though the morning grows bright, he listens inwardly, trying to hear that whisper still. The morning deepens. Sunlight glints upon rooftops of terracotta and bronze, spilling across the mosaic floors of Rome like liquid gold. He moves through the forum, past columns that seem to hum with the murmur of centuries. Around him, life stirs in its measured Roman order, tradesmen shouting prices, scribes unrolling scrolls, bakers lifting warm loaves from clay ovens. Yet within his mind, the dream persists, quiet and insistent. Not its images, those have fled, but the feeling of it, a pulse that lingers just beneath thought. There was water, light, and a name spoken softly. Such a simple memory, yet somehow it sits heavy upon the heart. He stops beside a fountain, dipping his fingers into the cool basin. Around him, the air hums with conversation to merchants, debating the day's omens. One mentions that the ogres have seen crows flying east, a sign of good fortune for trade. The other scoffs, insisting dreams matter more than birds. He listens without meaning to, caught between skepticism and belief. Rome is full of such contradictions, the empire that builds aqueducts and drains swamps, yet still consults the gods before any important act. He smiles faintly. Perhaps both logic and faith serve their purpose, one for the body, one for the soul. A friend greets him, a man from the same district, his hands stained from the dye works. "You look as though the spirits still hold you," the friend jokes. "Perhaps they do," he replies. They walk together, exchanging small talk of crops, of Tisante's latest decree, of taxes and theater performances. Yet the friend, being Roman, soon circles back to dreams. "Last night I dreamt of an eagle," he says. "It perched upon my roof. My wife swears it means I'll be promoted in the guild." He laughs softly. "And what do you think it means?" "That the roof tiles need fixing." Their laughter blends with the market noise. Still, he feels the weight of his own dream again. When day party pauses beneath a portico where an old woman sells herbs and amulets. Her stall is draped with dried leaves of laurel, bunches of lavender, and small clay figurines, shaped like eyes and hands, protections against envy and unseen spirits. "Good day, mistress," he says politely. "You know much about dreams?" They say. The woman nods, her eyes sharp as a crow's. "Dreams and the herbs that quiet them." "You seek sleep or meaning?" "Meaning," She studies him for a moment, then gestures to a bundle of crushed poppy heads tied with red string. Burn this before sleep. If the dream returns, it carries a message. If it does not, it was nothing but smoke. He thanks her and places a few coins on the table. Her wrinkled fingers close around them like roots curling in soil. Remember, she says softly, the gods speak gently. The impatient never hear. He walks away with her words echoing faintly. The sun has climbed higher now. The air is warm, alive with the scent of bread and dust and oil. Beneath the arches, voices rise in argument and laughter. Yet all he feels is the shadow of the morning dream, alive still, humming in his thoughts. By midday, the heat thickens, and he returns home to escape the glare. Within the shaded atrium, the sound of dripping water cools the air. His wife greets him with a light touch on the shoulder. "You think still of your dream?" she asks, reading his expression with ease. He nods. "It clings to me." "Then ask the gods to reveal it," she says simply. "Or visit the temple of Asclepius tonight. They say those who sleep there receive visions and answer." He considers it dream incubatio. The priests call it, was not uncommon. Men and women seeking divine counsel would sleep in sacred chambers, hoping to be visited by a healing or prophetic dream. Perhaps he will go. For now, he sits beside the central pool, the light reflecting from its surface dancing across the walls. The household hums gently around him, the soft murmur of servants, the rustle of cloth, the faint crackle of a lamp wick. He opens a small wax tablet, idly scratching notes with a stylus. Not words of business, but fragments of the morning's vision, before it dissolves completely. Water, voice, light upon marble. From the peristyle garden comes the scent of rosemary and fig leaves. His youngest daughter chases a small bird between the columns, laughing softly. The sound pulls him from thought. Life, he thinks, is a string of such small miracles. Children's laughter, cool water, tome of bees, things no omen could measure. But Rome is a city that lives by signs. In the afternoon, a neighbor visits, eager to discuss the news from the forum. They speak of a senator who reportedly dreamt of Jupiter descending in fire, a portent, some claim of coming triumph. Others whisper that such visions foretell unrest. Dreams rule men as much as laws. His neighbor says, "Sometimes more," he replies, half to himself. When the man departs, the house grows quiet again. He stretches upon a couch, eyes half closed, listening to the faint buzz of flies near the open doorway. Sleep hovers close, the light dozing of an early afternoon. In that brief drowse, another image flickers, the same water, the same voice, calling not his name but something older, almost musical. He wakes abruptly, heart slow and heavy. The dream is gone, yet its pulse remains. As the sun begins to lower, turning the rooftops red, he rises and steps into the courtyard. The day is nearly done. The air cools, scented with the faint smoke of cooking fires and crushed herbs. Children's laughter fades, replaced by the murmurs of evening. He stands beside the household altar once more, the small flame flickering against the coming dusk. "Somnus," he whispers. "If the dream means something, let me understand it, and if not, let me rest." His wife joins him, placing a flower beside the lamp. "The night will tell you," she says. He nods, believing her. As darkness deepens, he feels again the weight of the ancient city. The countless sleepers behind every wall, each drifting into their private worlds of vision and memory. The noise of Rome fades to a hush, as though the gods themselves draw breath. He looks up. Stars begin to appear above the roofs, silver and small. Somewhere in the distance, the bells of a temple chime softly. He feels the same calm he knew at dawn, the circle of day closing upon itself. Inside, the household quiets. Lamps are lit, oil wicks trimmed. He prepares for rest as any Roman might, washing his hands, murmuring a prayer to the spirits, setting aside the day sandals. When at last he lies down, the room is filled with the soft scent of poppy smoke. burning gently in a clay bowl by the window. The herb seller's gift. Outside, a night breeze moves through the olive branches. He closes his eyes. The dream returns, clearer now. He stands by the water once again, the surface shining like glass. A figure steps toward him. Not God, not mortal, but something between. Its voice speaks softly, yet the words are lost to waking ears. The dreamer smiles faintly in sleep, and beyond his walls, the city of Rome sleeps too, each heart carrying its own quiet mystery through the night. Daily life and dream interpretations. Morning found him once more beneath the pale Roman light. The fountain in the courtyard whispered the same patient song it had sung yesterday, though the air felt changed. Dreams had their own kind of gravity. They drew the mind into quiet orbits long after waking. He rose before the rest of the household, drawn by the faint chill that lingered in the marble corridors. Outside, the sky was washed with the faint pink of dawn. He paused by the Narration, the small shrine of the household gods, and lit a pinch of incense. Smoke curled upward, gray and graceful, as he whispered thanks for peaceful sleep and another safe return to waking life. The dream had come again, or perhaps a memory of it. The river still flowed, but now there was no voice, only the shimmer of light on the surface. He felt calm within it, as though he were the current itself. He did not know whether to call it a message or a mood, but Romans seldom dismissed a dream that repeated. By the time the slaves began their morning tasks, he had already dressed. The tunic's fabric, softened by years of wear, clung to his shoulder as he fastened the fibula pin. The rhythm of daily life unfolded around him. A servant sweeping dust from the mosaic floor, another arranging figs and bread for the morning meal. When his father entered, he greeted him with a nod. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, the customary phrase, though it carried more than politeness here. Sleep was never just rest. It was an encounter with the unseen. "Well enough," the young man replied. "The same dream, perhaps. I cannot yet name its meaning." His father smiled faintly. "Then perhaps it is not ready to be named. Dreams, like oracles, speak only when they wish." The household shared the intaculum, the simple breakfast. The matron discussed errands. A younger cousin boasted about learning new verses from Ovid. But conversation, as it always did, drifted to dreams before long. His aunt told of a troubling vision, an owl flying into her room and vanishing through the wall. His uncle frowned. "An owl," he said, "is often a warning. Perhaps a letter will arrive today. Bad news travels before itself." The aunt made the sign of protection, touching her lips and heart. "Then let the gods delay it," she murmured. He listened quietly, absorbing the texture of it all. How natural this talk was, how smoothly divine symbolism flowed into daily life. To the Romans' dreams were not interruptions of reason, but another form of reason itself. Logic clothed in mystery. After breakfast, he stepped outside into the brightening day. The streets were alive with merchants and voices, the sound of sandals against stone. He carried a small wax tablet tucked into his belt, should he wish to record anything significant that occurred, any sign that the dream-esque pattern continued. At the marketplace, sunlight glinted from bronze scales as fishmongers arranged their catches. The smell of olives, smoke, and sea. Air filled the air. A friend greeted him, Gaius, a craftsman who carved small figures from wood. His hands were dark with oil and dust. "Still haunted by the river?" Gaius asked with a knowing grin. He nodded. "You remember?" "Of course. You mentioned it yesterday after the baths. Has it changed?" He described the new stillness, the light instead of the voice. Gaius listened carefully, then said, "It is said that when a dream changes but does not fade, it seeks completion. Perhaps it means something yet to come." He gestured toward his workshop nearby. "I dreamt once of a statue's eyes opening as I carved them. The next day, a merchant offered twice my price for the piece. I took it as a blessing. We, Romans, must find good omens where we can." He smiled at his friend's practicality. "And if the eyes had not opened, then I would have kept carving until they did." Gaius laughed. Such conversations filled the marketplace, as ordinary as talk of weather or trade. Dreams wove through the public chatter, subtle but constant. Even soldiers and slaves, hardened by labor, told of visions before the morning shift. As noon approached, the heat thickened. He stopped at a shaded portico for rest, where a small crowd had gathered to listen to a philosopher lecturing on Stoic principles. The man spoke of control, that dreams were not divine commands, but reflections of the soul. A soul in turbulence. Man fears what he does not master, said the philosopher, voice echoing softly off the marble. To interpret every dream as prophecy is to give up reason to imagination. He watched him, admiring the calm certainty, yet something in him resisted. Could the river be merely imagination? Could coincidence explain how it lingered, reshaped, and returned? When the lecture ended, he approached the philosopher. If dreams are born of the self, he asked, why do they show us what we could not know? The philosopher studied him for a moment. Perhaps the soul is larger than the waking mind, he said quietly, and when we sleep, it simply remembers more of what it already is. He thanked the philosopher and stepped back into the light, the words circling in his thoughts like ripples on water. The afternoon pressed gently upon the city, carrying with it the timeless hum of life. Yet even as he moved through, the crowd bought fruit, exchanged greetings, and listened to the distant songs of street performers. He remained aware of the dream's quiet pull, as if some invisible thread connected his waking steps to the current of that unseen river. Daily life and dream interpretations. The sun climbed high above Rome, bathing the city in a pale brilliance that glinted across rooftops, statues, and the slow-moving stream of daily commerce. The marble pavements were warm beneath his sandals, and the air shimmered faintly with heat rising from the stones. From the forum came a chorus of voices, senators in quiet argument, merchants calling out prices, children weaving between stalls, and the rhythmic clang of metal echoing from a distant smithy. He moved through it all with an unhurried step, the dream still trailing behind him like a faint scent of incense that would not fade. Beneath the steady hum of the day, he felt the gentle tug of that other world, the one that surfaced only in sleep. Passing under an arch draped with flowering vines, he entered a shaded colonnade. For a moment, the light softened. Time itself seemed to slow. The air was cool there, perfumed faintly by crushed herbs and the dust of marble. His thoughts drifted once again to the river, not as it had been before, swift and commanding, but as it had appeared last night. Still, serene, and filled with reflected light. It was both peaceful and unsettling, like the silence between two verses of a hymn. At the end of the colonnade, he noticed a veiled woman kneeling before a small statue of Somnus, god of sleep. The god reclined in sculpted calm, poppies crowning his brow, wings folded along his shoulders. The woman sprinkled flower petals at the statue's feet and murmured a prayer too soft to hear. He paused, watching her with quiet curiosity. To offer prayers to Somnus by daylight was not uncommon, for sleep was a sacred passage, a daily dying of the senses through which the divine might whisper unseen truths. The woman lifted her gaze and noticed him standing nearby. "You dream often?" she asked gently, her voice carrying the faintest lilt of fatigue and reverence. "Lately, yes," he admitted. "Then you are blessed," she said. "Many plead for dreams, but find only silence. The gods have not stopped speaking. We have only forgotten how to listen." He inclined his head, not entirely sure whether to agree. Her words lingered in the quiet space between them before she turned and walked away, leaving behind the faint perfume of myrrh. He continued on, rejoining the current of Roman life as it flowed through the forum. Around him, stalls glittered with ivory carvings, bolts of dyed linen, and jars of perfumed oil. Voices mingled in 1,000 directions. Laughter, haggling, gossip, and yet amid that noise, he sensed again the undercurrent of dreams. In gestures, in expressions, in the small signs people noticed, but did not speak aloud. Near the steps of a temple, he saw an old man sitting cross-legged beside a few clay tablets arranged neatly before him. A painted sign above his head read Somniorum Interpres, Dream Interpreter. The man's eyes, sharp and bright despite the deep lines of age, fixed upon him immediately. "You have seen something," the interpreter said without preamble. He hesitated. "How could you know? They always come with that look," the old man said softly, half wonder, half unease. "Sit." He sat beside him on the cool stone. The sounds of the market seemed to blur, distant yet soothing. The interpreter waited, patient as a priest before an altar. "The river," he began, "returns to me each night. At first, it flowed swiftly and carried a voice I could not name. But now it lies still. I see light upon its surface, but hear nothing. You feel watched, or perhaps remembered." The interpreter listened without a word. When the story was told, he traced a slow pattern with his finger in the dust. "The river," he said at last, "is the oldest path between worlds. To cross it is to change. But when a river becomes still, it no longer calls you forward. It asks you to look. Still water reflects. It teaches patience. So I should wait?" the young man asked quietly. Perhaps the dream tells you that what you seek already lies before you, only hidden in your own reflection." He thought on this. The interpreter reached into a small pouch, drawing out a poppy seed and pressing it into his palm. "Sleep lightly tonight," he said. "Drink no wine before bed. If the river moves again, remember which direction it flows." The young man bowed his head in thanks and offered a coin, but the old man waved it away. "Knowledge," he said, "pays its own debt." He rose and left, the seed still resting in his hand. The afternoon light had grown softer, and the streets smelled faintly of warm stone and olive oil. He soon reached the workshop of his friend Gaius, who was bent over a wooden figurine of Diana, the moon's silver huntress. The curls of shaven wood fell around his feet like petals. "The interpreter spoke to you," Gaius said before the young man could speak. "How did you guess? You have that look, as if part of you still stands in another world." Gaius smiled. "Well then, what did he say?" "He told me the river is patient, not silent, that I must wait." Gaius nodded thoughtfully. "Then wait." Rome herself waited centuries for her greatness. A dream ripens like a harvest, never in haste. He held up the figure he carved. "I dreamt once that Diana's bow broke as I carved it. The next day, a storm cracked the roof above my workbench, but spared the figure. I took it as a warning and a blessing." He laughed, but his words were sincere. The young man smiled, and they worked in companionable silence for a while, the soft rhythm of knife against wood mingling with the afternoon breeze. By late day, the city's pulse had slowed. Farmers returning from the outskirts passed by with carts of grain and fruit. They, too, spoke of dreams. A locust swarm that foretold a poor harvest. A white bull that promised rain. Even among laborers, such visions shaped choices, guided when to sow, when to wait, and when to pray. He later made his way to the Thermae, the public baths, a place where Rome herself exhaled. The air shimmered with heat and laughter, the sound of splashing water echoing off marble. He moved through the familiar sequence, the warm tepidarium, the steaming caldarium, and finally the sharp, cool plunge of the frigidarium. Two men nearby were deep in conversation. "I dreamt of a lion last night," one said. "It roared, but did not strike. Surely that's an omen's strength restrained." "Or indigestion?" the other replied, and both laughed. Still, even through humor, belief endured. Every Roman, from senator to slave, carried within him that old conviction that dreams were not idle play, but fragments of truth. As he rested on a marble bench, the young man remembered his father's words. "A man who forgets his dreams forgets half his life." He wondered how many of Rome's great choices, its conquests, its laws, its alliances had begun, not in the Senate, but in sleep. When evening began to fold across the city, he returned home. The streets shimmered in bronze light, and the lamps along the walls began to glow. The scent of baking bread floated through open doors. In the courtyard, his aunt awaited with a sealed letter. "It is not bad," she said with a relieved smile. "My brother from Ostia writes that the harvest is good." The owl was merely a messenger, not a warning. His uncle laughed. The gods love irony. It keeps us humble. They dined together beneath lamplight, the house filled with the soft rhythm of conversation. Inevitably, talk returned to dreams. Omens, symbols, small mysteries, half believed and wholly felt. Later, as night drew near, he stepped outside once more. The sky above Rome was clear, the first stars rising like slow embers. Somewhere far away, a musician played the lyre, and beneath it all, beneath marble and myth, beneath the clamor and the calm, Rome dreamed on. Daily life and dream interpretations, the city began to hush. Rome, that mighty heart of empire, settled into its evening rhythm, slower, gentler, soft by the amber wash of twilight. From high terraces came the smell of oil lamps being lit, mingling with smoke from kitchens and the faint sweetness of roasting chestnuts. The young man stepped once more onto his small balcony, where the air still carried warmth from the day. The rooftops glowed faintly in the dimming light, and across the Tiber, the domes of temples turned to silhouettes against the deepening sky. Below, in the courtyard, his uncle fed the small household fire, tossing in sprigs of juniper, rosemary, and bay leaf. The fragrant smoke curled upward in lazy spirals. Such rituals were as common as breathing, gestures of respect toward the gods of the unseen world. His aunt placed a small clay bowl near the doorway, filled with milk and honey. "For the spirits of the house," she whispered. "Let 'em dream kindly tonight." He smiled faintly. Even the simplest act carried meaning in this city, a reflection of Rome's constant negotiation with mystery. For every sound, every scent, every shape in the night might conceal a sign, if one only looked long enough. He wandered back inside, where the oil lamp flickered beside his bed. The light quivered gently on the wall, and the shadows swayed like dancers moving to a song that only memory could hear. He remembered what the old interpreter had told him. If the river moves again, remember which direction it flows. Outside, the night deepened. In distant streets, a few voices still murmured, guards on watch, lovers in quiet conversation, a flute playing somewhere near the forum. Rome was never fully silent. Evening sleep, it spoke softly to itself, a breathing giant wrapped in marble and myth. He opened the window wider. The faint hum of cicadas filled the still air. On the table beside him lay the small poppy seed the interpreter had given. So small, yet somehow weighty with meaning. He turned it in his fingers, feeling its texture, its promise. He placed it on the sill, whispering a quiet thanks, not only to the interpreter, but to whatever unseen presence wove his nights into patterns of thought and vision. He extinguished the lamp. Darkness unfolded around him like a vast cloak. The cool air carried the scent of stone, oil, and distant myrrh. He lay back, his body easing into rest, his breath sinking with the faint pulse of the city beyond. In that threshold between waking and sleep, the sounds of the world began to dissolve. Footsteps, voices, wind, all fading into something softer. Then came the river. At first faint, only a glimmer, a suggestion. The surface rippled beneath starlight, and the air above it shimmered like heat in the desert. This time, it was not silent. The current stirred, gentle but steady, as though guided by an unseen hand. He could feel it pulling softly, inviting rather than commanding. Across the water, he saw a faint figure, not human, not divine, but something in between. It raised an arm, and for a moment he thought it beckoned. Then he realized it only pointed downward, into the water itself. He looked and saw his reflection, but it was not the same face that had greeted him in the morning's mirror. His face was calm, almost ancient eyes, luminous as though lit from within. The river's voice was like wind through reeds. You have waited, and so you have seen. To know the path forward, one must first know the shape of stillness. He knelt beside the dream water, tracing its surface with his fingers. Ripples spread outward, carrying faint stars across the current. And when the image broke, he felt no fear, only peace. Behind him, the figure faded, and the sound of the river softened again into silence. He awoke just before dawn. The first light of morning crept across the walls, pale and delicate. Outside, Rome stirred. Once more carts rolling, birds calling, the first bells from a temple announcing daybreak. The poppy seed still rested on the sill. He smiled, closing his hand gently around it. The river had moved, and with it, something within him had moved too. Nocturnal preparations, he awakens beneath the pale Roman light of another morning. But this story does not dwell upon his waking. It is the evening that concerns us now, that slow and sacred descent into the realm of sleep. As the sun drifts westward, Rome begins to exhale. The heat eases its hold on the stone streets. The voices in the forum grow faint, replaced by the hum of returning footsteps. Smoke curls from the kitchens, carrying the scent of lentils, onions, and crushed herbs. Above the tiled rooftops, the sky deepens into a muted bronze, the color of repose. Our dreamer, whose name the story does not require, finishes his work as the shadows lengthen. He sets aside his writing stylus and rises from the wooden stool, stretching the tension from his shoulders. The day's questions, about omens, about the meaning of the still river in his dreams, are set gently aside. Evening is a time not for decisions, but for preparation. Waiting is domos. The household moves with a practiced rhythm of habit. Servants extinguish the lamps in unused rooms and sweep the day's dust from the floors. In the peristyle garden, a slave waters the herbs mint, rosemary, lavender. So their fragrance will rise through the night air. The fountain murmurs softly, its trickle steady and calm. Our dreamer walks there, tracing the edge of the marble basin with one hand. Water and sleep. The Romans often linked them. Both Clean said, both transformed. To us at this end was to symbolically release what the hours had carried in. He dips his hands into the cool water and lets it run down his wrists. Somnus, he murmurs under his breath, invoking the god of rest. Grant me clarity in dreams, as clear as this water flows. The prayer is simple, private. In Roman life, such small acts were common. Neither temple nor priest was always required. A whispered invocation, a candle's glow, or the scent of a flower could bridge the mortal and divine. Inside, the evening meal is prepared. Bread warm from the oven, olives cured in brine, lentils in olive oil. The dreamer eats quietly, joined by family and servants alike. The talk is subdued, a few soft words about tomorrow's errands, a gentle jest, laughter that fades quickly. No one ruses, bruse. The pace of the evening meal is deliberate, meant to ease the spirit toward calm. Heavy food is avoided, for too much wine or meat is said to disturb the night's visions. Those who wish to dream clearly must eat modestly and let the body settle like a pawn before reflection. When the plates are cleared and lamps trimmed, the household disperses. Some lingered by the hearth, mending garments or telling small tales of the day. Others retire early. Our dreamer walks once more to his study, where a single lamp burns low. The wax tablets from earlier still rest upon the table. He opens one, running a thumb across the inscription carved in the morning. Stillwater reflects. He studies the words and smiles faintly. In the quiet of the hour, the phrase feels less like a mystery and more like an answer. Perhaps dreams, too, are reflections, not of gods only, but of the soul itself. He sets the tablet aside and takes a small cup from the shelf. Within it is a simple infusion, warm milk scented with honey and poppy. The Romans called it the drink of tranquility. Physicians like Galen claimed it soothed the humors of the body and invited calm dreams. He drinks it slowly, savoring the sweetness, and feels its warmth settle through him like a low flame. Beyond the walls, the sounds of Rome have softened. The bathhouses have emptied. The markets are closed. Yet the city never sleeps completely. In the distance, one can hear the faint call of the night watch, the barking of a dog, the turning of a cartwheel on cobblestone. Above all, the stars reign over the capital. That same sky, which, Romans believed, mirrored the heavens of the gods. It was said that Somnus himself dwelled near the borders of the underworld, in a dark valley where no rooster crowed and no dawn disturbed him. His palace was silent, lined with poppies, where dreams flowed like mist through every doorway. There, his sons, Dionaroi, shaped visions for mortals. Morpheus, the shaper of human dreams. Phantasos, who painted the lifeless stone. Water, and shadow, and Phobiter, who brought forth animals and fears. To the Romans, invoking these figures before sleep was an act of both humility and hope, a recognition that the nighty stories were not random, but woven. Our dreamer, though no priest, honors this quiet lineage. He kneels beside his bed, places a small offering of crushed herbs, poppy, myrtle, and a few grains of salt. Upon a clay plate, Somnus, he whispers again. May your sons visit kindly. May their shapes bear truth, not terror. He extinguishes the last lamp. Darkness folds around him like a cloak. In the courtyard, the fountain continues its murmur, steady as breath. A faint wind stirs the vines along the colonnade. The moon, now risen, spills a cool light across the marble floor. Within the dreamer's room, stillness deepens. His breathing slows. The first tendrils of sleep begin to weave their unseen web, not sudden, but gradual, like a tide rising around the shores of thought. Tonight, he dreams not of rivers, but of doors, hundreds of them, stretching endlessly. Some open to light, some to shadow. Some lead to places he has known, others, to realms unshaped by waking reason. Each door whispers as he passes. He does not enter any. Not yet. The vision is not meant for interpretation, only for patience. In dreams, as in Rome itself, meaning takes time to ripen. And as he drifts deeper into that twilight realm, the city outside continues its eternal rhythm, the heartbeat of empire, mingled with the pulse of countless sleepers who, like him, dream beneath the same ancient sky. The hour grows late, but Rome does not fall wholly silent. Somewhere in the distance, a chariot rolls over the paving stones, its wheels echoing between the walls. A dog barks once, then again, and is answered by another. From a nearby villa drifts the faint melody of a flute. A private concert, perhaps, for a sleepless patron. Our dreamer, standing by his window, gazes upon the city and feels a calm weight settle in his chest. The day has folded itself neatly behind him. The sky above is vast and silver, and in that quiet breath, a sense is a call, not to wakefulness, but to contemplation. He wraps a light cloak around his shoulders and steps into the courtyard. The night air carries the scent of cypress and stone. From here, the stars seem almost reachable, their glow reflecting faintly in the water of the fountain. There's a place he visits when dreams trouble him, a small shrine on the edge of the Aventine hill, half forgotten, known to few beyond those who keep the old ways. It is said that within its walls, the gods of sleep listen more closely, and sometimes, if one rests there, they will send a dream with purpose. They call such practice incubatio, the sleeping of the soul in sacred company. And so, he sets out. The streets are near empty now. A few lanterns burn in doorways. The air hums with the faint rhythm of night and sex. Each footstep seems to echo into endlessness. Above, the moon watches, like a patient guardian. When he reaches the hill, he finds the shrine as he remembers a modest structure of worn stone, embraced by ivy and shadow. Its gate stands slightly open, as though it had been waiting for him. Inside, a single priestess tends to a small flame. She is old, her robe simple, her hands steady. At the sight of him, she nods on, say, no questions, no words of welcome. In this place, silence is the only greeting required. He kneels and places a small offering upon the altar. Honey, milk, and a sprig of laurel. The priestess sprinkles them with wine and murmurs a brief prayer to Somnus, to Morpheus, to Asclepius. For here, sleep and healing are intertwined. The air is heavy with incense, crushed myrtle, pine, resin, and poppy smoke. It curls upward in pale ribbons that seem to waver between this world and the next. Do you seek rest? The priestess asks softly. Or a message? He hesitates. Perhaps both. Then lie here, she says, motioning to a simple couch of linen. Dream as those before you have dreamed. What you see will not be random, but sent. He obeys. The chamber is dim, lit only by the flame and the moonlight that filters through a narrow window. The walls are painted with fading frescoes, images of sleepers, visited by winged figures, of rivers winding through starlit fields, of men rising from beds with new light in their eyes. He lies upon the couch, feeling the linen cool against his skin. The scent of incense deepens. Time begins to slow. In the temple's hush, thought becomes distant. The city, the world, even the body seem to dissolve into rhythm, breath, heartbeat, breath again. Somewhere beyond, he hears the faint sound of a lyre, or perhaps it is only wind through stone. The priestess moves quietly, drawing a circle of sand upon the floor beside him, marking its edge with poppy petals. "Here," she says. The mortal mind ends. The dream begins. Her voice fades, and sleep takes him. In his dream, the shrine remains, but its walls open like curtains to reveal a vast plain of silver grass. A river cuts through its center, slow, luminous, endless. Upon its banks stand countless figures, all motionless, their faces turned toward the horizon. He walks among them and realizes they are not people, but dreams themselves, each a shape, once seen, once felt, once forgotten. They shimmer faintly, as though awaiting remembrance. A figure steps forward, a man draped in white, his eyes calm, his presence familiar yet immense. "You seek meaning," the figure says, "but meaning is the reflection, not the water." The words echo the interpreter's wisdom. Still water reflects. The man gestures toward the river. "Cross, and you will see." Our dreamer takes a step, then another. The water is cool, not cold, but steady. It hums faintly, as though alive. When he reaches the center, he looks down and sees his own reflection shimmer and fade. In its place, another image forms, the city of Rome, sleeping beneath its sky of 1,000 lamps. Then the reflection changes again. He sees not the city, but faces his family, his friends, the interpreter, the priestess, all of them surrounded by light, and from the depths of the water, a voice rises. Not divine thunder, but something simpler, like a whisper in his own heart. The dream does not come to answer. It comes to remind. The light grows brighter until all shape dissolves. He wakes. The flame upon the altar has burned low. The priestess still sits nearby, eyes half closed, her hand resting upon a small clay figure of Somnus. "You saw something," she says softly, not asking, but knowing. "I did," he replies, his voice hushed, "but I do not yet understand." "Understanding will come later," she murmurs. Dreams are seeds. They grow only in silence. She pours water from a bronze jug into a bowl, and he washes his hands, a symbolic act, returning from the sacred to the ordinary. The water ripples, then stills. When he steps outside, dawn is only a rumor behind the eastern hills. The air is cool, tender with dew. Rome sleeps still, though the faintest light now trembles along the skyline. He looks once more at the temple's door. Within it, the single flame continues to burn, a fragment of night's wisdom holding its place against the coming day. Then he walks home, unhurried. The cobblestones glisten faintly beneath the moon's retreat. A baker's oven flares to life. The first bird begins to sing, and as he reaches his courtyard, the first breath of morning touches the leaves of the laurel tree. The fountain murmurs the same old song, as though it had dreamt along with him. He stands beside it, watching the ripples form and fade, and realizes the simplest of truths, that to live well, one must not only act, but listen. Not only woke, but remember what sleep has spoken. The hour that follows the temple is the softest of all. That secret stretch of night when the world seems to hold its breath. He has returned to his villa, his sandals dusted with the pale sheen of moonlight. In the courtyard, the fountain whispers the same calm song, and the air smells faintly of olive oil and cool stone. Above, the constellations still gleam, but they seem farther now, as if the heavens themselves have drawn back into contemplation. He moves through the rooms by lamplight, each flame no larger than a golden flower. Shadows bend and bloom along the frescoed walls. Stories painted generations ago. Scenes of satyrs and poets, of harvests, of sleeping gods beneath sacred trees. He pauses before one, a depiction of Hypnos, the god of sleep, touching a mortal's eyes with the tips of his wings. It is an old image, faded by centuries of breath and smoke, yet tonight it seems alive. The god's expression is gentle, almost paternal. Sleep, the image seems to whisper. The world will wait. The dreamer sits upon his couch and begins his nightly ritual. He removes the bronze clasp from his cloak, lays it upon the small cedar table, and pours a shallow bowl of wine, not to drink, but to scent the room. The wine, warmed by the lamp, fills the air with its faint sweetness. Next, he takes a sprig of myrtle and sets it beside his pillow. Some Romans believed myrtle soothed the mind. Others said it kept away troublesome spirits. He believes both. Finally, he dips his fingers in a small vessel of oil, spiced with frankincense and lavender, and anoints his temples. The act is not religious, but reverent. Sleep, to him, is not a surrender, but a return. Beyond the open window, the city is hushed. The markets are long empty. The temples have locked their gates. The bathhouses rest, their steam cooled to mist. From the Subura to the Palatine, the torches, gutter and I. Even the Tiber has slowed its murmur, as though the river itself has fallen into dreaming. He lies down. The linen is smooth beneath him. The faint flicker of the lamp paints golden ripples upon the ceiling. A lizard crawls across a nearby wall, pauses, then disappears into the cracks of stone. His thoughts drift like dust, motes slow, harmless. He thinks of the dream at the temple, of the river that spoke in silence. The memory of it still lingers, like a faint echo in the chest. There are words he cannot recall, shapes, lights, feelings. But the message remains, even without language. He understands now that dreams are not puzzles to be solved, but mirrors, small, quiet mirrors reflecting the hidden parts of the self. Outside, the wind stirs. A door creaks in the corridor. Somewhere, a nightbird calls, soft and hollow, like the closing of a gate. He feels himself sinking, gently, through layers of stillness, from waking thought to drifting recollection, from drifting to the border of oblivion. In Rome, the night is not empty. It is filled with unseen travelers, dreams, spirits, whispers. Ancient writers said the soul leaves the body during sleep, wandering through the air like vapor, visiting distant places and returning with fragments of knowledge. Our dreamer believes this might be true, for as he drifts deeper, he feels that same movement, the lifting of something light within him, a part that no longer belongs to flesh or stone. He dreams again. This time, he stands in a vast colonnade, its pillars rising higher than any temple in Rome. Between them flows a gentle wind, carrying the scent of laurel and rain. The floor beneath his feet is made of polished obsidian, and upon it he sees a reflection, not of himself, but of countless others walking beside him, their forms faint, translucent, eternal. He recognizes none of them, yet feels no fear. Each dreamer passes with a purpose, one carrying a scroll, another a lamp, another a sprig of poppy. Some look ahead, others inward. He understands then, these are not the dead, but the sleeping souls adrift in the same vast sea of slumber, each finding their own shore. A voice neither male nor female speaks softly from the dark. All Rome sleeps, and in its dreaming, the world turns gently. He feels peace flood through him, a sensation older than memory. When he wakes again, there is no boundary between night and dawn. The lamp has burned low, the flame a mere blue whisper. The air carries the faintest gray of approaching light. Elie is still unwilling to move, unwilling to break the quiet. The dream remains vivid, not in image, but in feeling, like warmth left behind by a departed guest. He recalls the temple, the voice in the river, the mirrored faces, the whispered truth that dreams come not to answer, but to remind. And he wonders, remain of what? Perhaps of fragility, of time, of the soft pulse that binds the mortal to the divine. Perhaps of how the mind, like the city itself, needs darkness to endure. The household begins to stir. In the courtyard, a servant sweeps the mosaic floor. A cockerel calls faintly in the distance. The first streaks of sunlight slide across the walls, turning every shadow gold. He rises slowly, wraps his cloak around him once more, and steps into the open air. The fountain greets him again, the water clear, the surface still. He gazes into it, half expecting to see the reflection of his dream, but only his face looks back, calm, older somehow, touched by the softness of the night. He cups his hands, lifts the cool water, and lets it fall over his eyes. The gesture feels like a benediction, a renewal not of faith, but of awareness. The day ahead will unfold as every Roman day does, with work, with words, with ritual. But within him, something subtle has changed. A stillness, a steadiness, a memory of silence. He glances once more toward the hills where the Temple of Dreams rests unseen in the morning haze. For a moment, he imagines the priestess still there, tending her single flame. Then he turns away, not weed loss, but gratitude, because he knows now that the flame burns not just within the shrine, but in every quiet heart that closes its eyes and listens to the murmurs of the unseen. That night, and every night after, he will follow the same ritual, not out of superstition, but reverence. For in the Roman soul, sleep is not an interruption of life, but its continuation, another form of the same eternal rhythm. The city will wake and rest again. The Tiber will rise and fall, and dreams will come as they always have, not to startle, not to warn, but to remind that beyond ambition, beyond marble and empire, there lies the gentlest truth of all, that even the mightiest of civilizations must close its eyes, and, for a little while, simply sleep. The interpretation of dreams in daylight. The Romans approached dreams with both reverence and caution. Some dismissed them as shadows of digestion or idle thoughts. Others believed they were divine messages, carried by the gods or by the souls of the dead. In the great markets of Rome, dream interpreters, coniectors, offered their services to commoners and senators alike. They sat beneath awnings or temple colonnades, listening as clients described their visions, then consulted small scrolls filled with symbols and meanings. Dream of a snake, one might say, and beware of betrayal. Dream of a ladder, another would interpret, and you will ascend in fortune. But there were higher forms of interpretation too. Philosophers like Cicero argued that dreams were reflections of the inner mind, that they arose from hidden thoughts, fears, or wishes. In his writings, he asked whether the gods truly whispered through sleep, or whether it was only the self speaking in symbols. And then came the scholar Artemidorus of Dulcis, who devoted his life to cataloging the dreams of the ancient world. In his great work Onirocritica, he gathered thousands of visions from merchants, priests, sailors, and slaves, and sought to divine meaning not from superstition, but from pattern. He believed dreams mirrored daily life, and that their interpretation must consider the dreamer's age, work, and station. A senator's dream of a lion meant one thing, a soulless another. Dreams, he wrote, are personal oracles, born of one's own soul. Our dreamer, though he had never read Artemidorus, might have understood him instinctively, for each night's vision seemed to reflect not the city beyond his walls, but the quieter city within. The fear of troubled dreams, but not all dreams were gentle. Romans feared nightmares, the visits of dark spirits known as incubi or larvae. These were restless souls, said to press upon the chest of sleepers, stealing their breath. To ward them off, people placed iron tools beside their beds, or hung charms of coral and garlic above their doors. The poet Horace once wrote of such a terror, a vision of spectral women and black dogs that haunted his sleep after wine. He called it a burden heavier than wakefulness. To suffer too many such nights was thought a warning that one's soul was troubled, or that a god demanded appeasement. Our dreamer had known a few restless nights in his youth, dreams of falling, of calling for someone who never came. Now, he approached sleep with greater care. Soft ritual, steady breath, and the memory of calm waters. He had learned that peace is not the absence of dreams, but the gentleness with which one receives them. Dreams as divine messages. The Romans did not divide dream from divinity. They believed that the gods often spoke most clearly when the mind was quiet, unguarded by reason. The philosopher Macrobius described 5 kinds of dreams from the insult. The meaningless vision born of the stomach, to the oraculum, the direct message of a god. It was said that emperors had dreamed of their conquests before they began, that generals had seen omens of victory or defeat in the night before battle. Even humble citizens prayed for such visions. At temples of Asclepius, the god of healing, worshippers would sleep on the temple floor, a practice known as incubatio, hoping that God would appear in their dreams to prescribe a cure. Sometimes they would wake with vivid images: a spring, a serpent, a rising star, and priests would interpret them as divine remedies. Dreams were not fantasy, but conversation. And so our dreamer, though modest in his faith, treated each dream as a guest from the divine, greeted with respect, listened quietly, and never dismissed in haste. The universal sleep. Now imagine, if you will, the city of Rome itself asleep. Beneath the arches and domes, beneath the tiled roofs and marble colonnades, millions of souls lie breathing. From slaves to senators, from newborns to the aged, all are bound by the same still rhythm. Some dream of their fields in Campania, others of battles in Germania, others of lovers they will never meet again. The city hums softly, not with voices, but with the pulse of dreaming minds. Our dreamer lies among them, indistinguishable in the vast chorus of sleep. He dreams again of watered calm now, steady, gleaming like bronze beneath the moon. The river flows without words, but its meaning is clear. To live, to dream, to wake, to sleep again. Such is the eternal rhythm, the heartbeat of both man and empire. Reflections before dawn, and so the Roman night passes, not in silence, but in whispers. When dawn returns, and the first light touches the Tiber, the city stirs once more. Bakers kindle their fires, watchmen end their rounds. The marketplace breathes again. Our dreamer rises with them, the memory of the night still soft upon his mind. He cannot name what the dream has given him, only that it has left him lighter, more whole. He steps into the courtyard, where the fountain catches the first light of morning. The water, once silver, now turns to gold. He kneels, as he always does, and lets it run through his fingers. The same gesture, the same prayer. Somnus, thank you for the night. He does not ask for meaning. Some truths, he has learned, are not meant to be solved, but carried. And as the sun rises above the domes of Rome, the dreams of 1,000 sleepers drift upward with the mist invisible, yet eternal, like the size of a world that, even in its might, still remembers to rest. Reflections and legacy of dreams. The Roman morning comes quietly, gilded and slow. In the courtyard of the Domus, sunlight stretches its first golden fingers across the marble. The fountain still murmurs, unchanged, the same patient rhythm that lulled the household to sleep. Our dreamer stands beside it, his reflection trembling in the water. He has dreamed again, though the details are faint now. A voice calling from a distance, a torch flickering beside a riverbank. Nothing clear, nothing fearful. And yet, he wakes with the unshakable sense that something has shifted, not in the world, but within him. He no longer seeks to understand the dream. He only carries it, as one carries a tune whose words have been forgotten, but whose melody still brings calm. The habit of remembering in Rome, to remember one's dreams, was itself an act of devotion. Many Romans kept tablets or wax boards beside their beds, upon which they could record the fragments of night upon waking. Some wrote of omens, others of curiosities, still others of entire journeys through the lands of sleep. Philosophers, in particular, prized the act. They believed that the night revealed what the day concealed. The dream, wrote one, is the soul unmasked, the citizen of a freer republic. Our dreamer, though not a philosopher, has begun the same quiet habit. Each morning before he speaks or eats, he takes his stylus and writes a word, a line, a symbol. He does not try to interpret. He only records water, voice, flame, Stillness. The act itself feels sacred, a way of conversing with something vast and unseen. He places each tablet in a small chest by the window. A treasury not of gold, but of remembrance. Over time, the wax darkens with age. The marks soften, but the practice endures. For, in Rome, as in all civilizations, dreams were not lost. They were archived. The philosophers of the night, beyond the private chambers of dreamers like him. Rome's thinkers debated what these visions truly were. In one villa near Naples, Cicero wrote that dreams might be the echo of divine reason, reaching human ears through the fog of sleep. Yet, he doubted too. If dreams were divine, he asked, why would the gods not speak plainly by day? Others disagreed. Plutarch believed that the soul, in slumber, slipped its earthly tether and wandered among the spheres, where it glimpsed fragments of truth before returning to the flesh. Then there was Macrobius, a later voice, who looked upon dreams not as random play, but as revelation in disguise. He divided them into 5 kinds: mere illusions, reflections of waking thought, prophetic riddles, and true oracles. To Macrobius, the dreamer was a bridge, half in the mortal realm, half in the divine. Our dreamer would not have known these scholars by name, but he shared their wonder when he gazed into the still pool or the quiet flame. He sensed what they too sensed, that in every shadow of the night, some sliver of eternity awaited. The legacy of dreamers as centuries passed, Rome changed. Empires rise and fall as surely as nights follow days. The marble cracked, the temples emptied, the gods took quieter forms, but dreams remained. In the monasteries that rose upon the ruins of the old empire, monks continued the Roman habit of recording visions. They wrote of angels, of luminous towers, of journeys beyond the mortal veil. The gods had changed names, yet the mystery endured. In time, the philosophers of Greece and Rome were read anew by scholars of distant lands. The words of Artemidorus and Macrobius traveled through parchment and ink, carried by candlelight across centuries. And the Roman dream, the belief that the sleeping mind is not silence, but message, became part of the world's shared inheritance. Even the quietest of modern dreamers, lying beneath electric stars, inherits that same ancient instinct. To close the eyes, not merely for rest, but for revelation. The dream as reflection, our dreamer grows older. Seasons pass. The fountain still sings its patient song, though the ivy along the walls grows thicker each year. He has not abandoned his nightly rituals. Each evening, he lights the same small lamp, whispers his prayer to Somnus, and places myrtle beside his bed. But his relationship to dreams has changed. Once, he sought meaning. Then, he sought peace. Now, he seeks only to listen. He has learned that dreams, like the gods, speak best in whispers, and that to strain too hard to hear is to miss the message entirely. Often, he dreams of the city itself, not in its grandeur, but in its quiet hours. The baker kneading at dawn, the sound of sandals in the forum, the laughter of children chasing a hoop across a marble courtyard. He wakes from such dreams, feeling as though he has glimpsed Rome not as empire, but as soul. The tender heart that even history forgets to record. Sometimes, he dreams of the river again. It flows through him now, as much as through the city. He no longer asks what it means. He only listens to its eternal murmur. All Rome sleeps, and in its dreaming, the world turns gently. The scholar's lamps far beyond his lifetime, his wax tablets or ones like them, will vanish, melted, lost, repurposed. Yet others will rise to take their place. In another age, another scholar will open an old Roman text and find within it references to dreams. Imperial omens, or quiet, domestic visions recorded without purpose. They will marvel that even in the age of emperors and conquests, men and women still paused to ponder the shapes of their sleep. They will read Artemidorus, Unera Critica, and Macrobius' commentary on the dream of Scipio, and see that Rome, beneath its armor of logic and law, had a tender curiosity for the unseen. Dreams, they will realize, were Rome's most democratic art, shared by all, belonging to none. The unbroken thread as the centuries unfold. The language of dream changes, but its essence does not. The gods of sleep become metaphors. The temples turn to stories. The dream interpreters fade into legend. Yet the act itself, the closing of eyes, the silent surrender to mystery, endures. In the modern age, philosophers and physicians will name what the Romans intuited. They will speak of the subconscious, of decisive, of brain waves, and rapid eye movement. But still, when night falls, the questions remain the same. Where do we go when we sleep? Who speaks when we dream? And why do some visions feel like memories of a place we have never seen? The Romans did not answer these questions. They only lived them. And perhaps that is the wiser way. The final dream in his final years. The dreamer sleeps longer, rises slower. His hand trembles when he writes upon the wax. Yet every morning, he still records a word or two. One dawn, the servant finds him seated by the window, the stylus still in his hand, the lamp gone cold. On the tablet beside him are 3 words, written softly in unsteady script. River, light, peace. They bury him near the edge of the Tiber, beneath a cypress tree. The sound of the river is the last hymn sung for him. In time, his name fades, his house crumbles, his garden returns to earth, but the water still flows. And perhaps, in some quiet corner of eternity, the dreamer walks its banks, still listening to the voices of other sleepers, past and present, as they murmur in their dreams. The eternal night, now, as we pull away from the city of marble and memory, imagine Rome not as ruin or empire, but as it was in the dreaming hour, the torches low, the streets hushed, the Tiber gleaming like molten bronze under the moon. Every soul asleep, from emperor to beggar, every heart adrift in its private sea of visions. Listen closely, and perhaps you can still hear them. The millions of breaths, the faint turning of restless minds, the sacred music of an empire dreaming. For though centuries pass, and names are forgotten, that sound never ends. The Roman night was never silence. It was always a chorus, vast, invisible, eternal, and as we, to close our eyes, we join it once more. The same still river flows through all our sleep, the same soft gods wait by its shore, and in that vast and ancient dream, all humankind becomes Roman for a little while. Citizens not of empire, but of rest. And so ends another quiet chapter of forgotten Rome. The dreamer's day fades, as all days must, leaving only the hush of memory and the echo of his dream. In the stillness of the night, may your own thoughts wander gently, carried by the same calm wind that once stirred the Roman lamps. Thank you for joining the Sleeping Historian. If this tale has brought you rest, consider subscribing, so the next journey may find you again, somewhere between history and sleep. Good night, and dream softly.